At Christmas dinner, my family acted like I was invisible, until I calmly did something they didn't expect. I stood up, placed my napkin on the table, and announced I was leaving everything to charity. The silence that followed was deafening. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 72 years old, and that Christmas dinner changed everything. If you've ever been treated like you don't matter by the people who should love you most, or wondered what it takes to finally stand up for yourself, hit that like button now and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if your own family forgot you existed? I read every comment. Let's hear your stories. The evening started like every other Christmas for the past decade. I arrived at my daughter Victoria's house in Greenwich at exactly 5 p.m., carrying homemade pumpkin pies I'd spent the morning baking. The colonial-style home was decorated perfectly, white lights wrapped around every pillar, a wreath on the door that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. I rang the doorbell, waiting in the cold December air, my breath forming small clouds. Victoria opened the door, phone pressed to her ear, barely glancing at me as she stepped aside.
Yeah.
No, the contractor said January, she said into the phone, walking away as I entered. No hello, no hug, not even a smile. I set the pies on the kitchen counter where her husband Derek was opening wine bottles. Margaret, he said with a quick nod, not even making eye contact. Pies go in the dining room. I picked them back up and carried them through the house. The living room buzzed with conversation. My son James sat on the leather couch with his wife Patricia, laughing about something on his phone. Their teenage kids, Emma and Connor, were sprawled on the floor playing video games, controllers clicking rapidly. Merry Christmas, everyone, I said, standing in the doorway. James glanced up briefly. Hey, Mom. Then back to his phone. Patricia didn't even turn around. Emma and Connor kept gaming like I hadn't spoken at all. I placed the pies on the mahogany dining table, already set with Victoria's expensive china and crystal glasses. The centerpiece was elaborate, fresh flowers and gold candlesticks. Everything looked perfect for a magazine spread. I just didn't fit into the picture. Dinner was called at 6. We gathered around the table, 10 of us total. I took my usual seat at the far end, near the kitchen door. Victoria sat at the head with Derek beside her. James, Patricia, and their kids filled the middle section. My youngest, Robert, arrived late with his girlfriend Amber, both glued to their phones as they sat down. The meal began with Victoria announcing her recent promotion at the marketing firm. Everyone congratulated her, raising glasses, asking questions about her new title and corner office. I tried to join in. That's wonderful, honey. You've worked so hard. She didn't acknowledge me. Derek immediately launched into a story about their upcoming vacation to the Maldives. 20 minutes passed with conversation flowing around me like I was a stone in a river. James talked about his new car, a Tesla he'd customized. Patricia discussed their country club membership. Robert mentioned moving in with Amber, barely looking up from his phone as he said it. I attempted several times to contribute. I read an interesting article about electric cars, I said during James's monologue. He kept talking, not even pausing. Robert, when are you planning the move? I asked. Amber answered for him, and then the conversation shifted to her yoga instructor certification. Nobody asked about my life. Nobody mentioned the pies I'd brought. Nobody seemed to notice I was there at all. The main course arrived, turkey and all the sides. Plates were passed, wine poured. I sat quietly eating, watching my family laugh and talk, feeling like a ghost at my own daughter's table. This wasn't new. It had been building for years, this gradual erasure. After my husband Thomas died 8 years ago, the invitations became obligatory rather than genuine. The phone calls grew shorter, less frequent. Visits turned into rushed check-ins where they'd stay for 20 minutes, eyes constantly checking watches. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the invisibility was complete. If you're still watching and this resonates with you, press that like button now and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below about a time you felt overlooked. Your stories matter to me. Dessert was served, a fancy tiramisu Victoria had ordered from an upscale bakery. My pie sat untouched on the sideboard. Should we have the pumpkin pie? I suggested gently. Victoria waved a hand dismissively. This tiramisu was expensive. We'll have your pies tomorrow, maybe. Maybe. The word hung there. Emma asked to be excused, taking Connor with her back to the video games. James and Patricia started discussing their New Year's plans, a ski trip to Aspen. Robert and Amber were making plans on their phones, laughing about something neither bothered to share with the table. I sat there, dessert plate empty, watching my family exist in a world where I didn't matter. Then Victoria mentioned something that made my heart stop. So, James and I have been talking, she said, glancing at her brother. Mom, we think it's time to discuss your living situation. I set down my fork. My living situation? The house in Riverside, James said, leaning forward. It's too much for you to maintain. You're there all alone. It makes more sense to sell it, move you into a nice assisted living facility. Nothing drastic, just something smaller, more manageable. I stared at him. The house in Riverside was mine and Thomas's. We'd bought it 40 years ago, raised all 3 children there. Every room held memories. The garden Thomas planted. The kitchen where I'd taught Victoria to bake. The porch where James took his prom photos. I manage fine, I said quietly. Mom, be realistic, Victoria cut in. You're 72. The property taxes alone are ridiculous. Plus, the market's good right now. We could get an excellent price. We? I repeated. Robert finally looked up from his phone. It just makes sense, Mom. You'd have less to worry about. And the money from the sale could go toward better care for you. Better care. They meant controlling my finances. I'd seen this pattern before with Thomas's mother. Well-meaning children taking over, slowly stripping away independence until nothing remained but a shell of the person who used to decide their own fate. I'm not selling my house, I said firmly. Derek jumped in, playing mediator. Margaret, no one's forcing anything. We're just concerned about your welfare. That house is worth at least $2 million. You could live very comfortably in a facility, and there'd still be plenty left over. Plenty left over. For them, he meant the inheritance they'd already started dividing in their heads. Patricia added her voice. My mother moved into Whispering Pines last year. It's lovely. They have activities, meal plans, everything handled. You wouldn't have to cook or clean anymore. I like cooking and cleaning my own home, I said, my voice steady despite the anger building inside. This isn't a discussion for tonight, Victoria said with finality. We'll set up a proper meeting after the holidays. James already talked to a real estate agent friend. We just wanted to give you a heads up. A heads up. Not a conversation. Not asking my opinion. Just informing me of decisions they'd already made. The table went quiet for a moment, everyone looking uncomfortable except Victoria and James, who seemed satisfied they'd broached the topic. Then the conversation moved on to football scores and shopping deals. I excused myself, saying I needed the bathroom. Nobody noticed me leave. I stood in Victoria's powder room, staring at my reflection in the gilded mirror. A 72-year-old woman stared back, grey hair neatly styled, wearing the green cardigan Victoria had given me 3 Christmases ago because it was age-appropriate. When had I become this person? This invisible, convenient problem they needed to solve? I thought about Thomas. How he'd squeeze my hand during family dinners, his way of saying, "We're in this together." How he'd stand up for me when the kids got too demanding, too dismissive. He'd been gone 8 years, and in that time, I'd let myself shrink. Let them treat me like an obligation instead of a person. But I wasn't gone yet. And I wasn't powerless. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to a contact I hadn't called in months. Gerald Hoffman, the estate attorney who'd helped Thomas and me set up our will years ago. His voicemail picked up. I left a message. "Gerald, it's Margaret Chen. I need to schedule an appointment as soon as possible after Christmas. I want to revise my will completely. Please call me back." I hung up, hands steadier than they'd been all evening. Then I returned to the dining room. They were playing a board game now, laughter echoing off the walls. I walked to my seat, picked up my purse, and stood at the head of the table where Victoria sat. "I'm leaving," I announced. Victoria barely looked up. "Okay, Mom. Drive safe. Thanks for coming." "Before I go," I continued, my voice clear and calm, "I want you all to know something." That got their attention. Faces turned toward me, confusion flickering across features. "I've decided to revise my will. The house, the savings, the investments, all of it. I'm leaving everything to charity." The silence was instant and total. James's mouth actually fell open. Victoria's eyes went wide. "What?" Derek said, the first one to find words. "You heard me," I said, meeting each of their gazes in turn. "I've spent years being treated like furniture in your lives. I show up, I'm ignored. I contribute, it's dismissed. Tonight, you didn't even touch the pies I spent hours making. You talk about selling my home like I'm not even in the room. You've made it very clear that I'm just an inconvenience you tolerate out of obligation." "Mom, that's not," James started. "Don't interrupt me," I said sharply. "I'm still talking. For once, you're all going to listen." Robert put down his phone. Patricia's hand covered her mouth. Even Emma and Connor had stopped playing games, watching from the living room. "Thomas and I built a good life. We saved, we invested wisely. That house is worth $2 million, yes. Plus another $3 million in various accounts and assets. $5 million total that you've all been counting on inheriting." Victoria found her voice. "You can't be serious. We're your children." "And I'm your mother," I replied. "Not a problem to be managed. Not a burden to be shuffled into a facility so you can cash in on my property. I'm a person who deserves respect and consideration." "We do respect you," Patricia said weakly. "You've shown me the opposite. All of you." I looked at Robert. You barely speak to me unless you need something. Last month, you asked me to co-sign a loan, and when I said no, I didn't hear from you for 3 weeks. To James, you visit twice a year, stay less than an hour, and spend the whole time checking your email. To Victoria, you host me at holidays like it's a chore you have to check off. You don't call just to talk. You don't ask how I'm doing. Tonight, you announced plans to sell my home without even consulting me first. The room stayed silent. I continued. So yes, I'm serious. I've already left a message with my attorney. After the holidays, I'm signing new documents. Everything goes to charities that actually value what I have to offer. Medical research, children's hospitals, scholarship funds. Organizations that will appreciate the gift. Derek stood up. Margaret, let's not be hasty. We can talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I said calmly. This isn't a negotiation. It's my decision about my assets. You've all made your priorities clear. Now I'm making mine clear. I picked up my purse, collected my untouched pies from the sideboard. Merry Christmas, everyone. I'll see myself out. I walked to the front door, half expecting someone to follow, to apologize, to say something that would change my mind. Nobody did. I heard frantic whispering behind me as I put on my coat, but no one came after me. I drove home through empty streets, Christmas lights blurring past, feeling lighter than I had in years. If this story is touching something in you, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this with your family or friends, and comment below. Have you ever had to make a hard choice to protect your peace? I want to hear from you. The next morning, my phone exploded. Texts from Victoria, James, and Robert flooded in. Calls I didn't answer. Voicemails I deleted without listening. For 3 days, I let them stew in what they'd done. Gerald called back December 27th, Margaret, I got your message. Are you sure about this? Completely sure, I told him. We scheduled an appointment for January 2nd. He warned me it would cause family upheaval. I told him the upheaval had already happened. I'd just finally acknowledged it. Victoria showed up at my door on December 28th, unannounced. I let her in, offered tea, and we sat in my living room, the one she wanted to sell. Mom, please. You can't cut us out like this. I'm not cutting you out of my life, I said. I'm cutting you out of my will. There's a difference. But we're your children. That money should go to family. Why? I asked simply. Because blood relation entitles you to my life savings? Thomas and I worked decades for what we have. We planned to leave it to you because we thought you valued us, not just our assets. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, I thought, though I couldn't be entirely sure. We do value you. We've just been busy. Work, kids, life. It gets overwhelming. I've been busy too, Victoria. I've had a life too. But I always made time for you. When you called at 2 a.m. with newborn problems, I came. When James needed help after his divorce, I was there. When Robert struggled in college, I paid for tutoring and never asked for repayment. I showed up. You've stopped showing up for me. She was quiet for a moment. You're right, she admitted softly. We've taken you for granted. Especially after Dad died. We just assumed you'd always be there, always understanding. I am here. I am understanding. But I'm also done being invisible. What can we do to fix this? She asked. I shook my head. I don't know yet. But changing my will isn't about punishing you. It's about reclaiming my dignity. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be because you actually want me in your life, not because you're protecting an inheritance. Victoria left shortly after, promising to do better. I didn't believe her yet. Words were easy. Actions would show the truth. James came by the next day, more aggressive than his sister. This is ridiculous, Mom. You're being manipulated by some charity scammers. I haven't contacted any charities yet, I said calmly. And Gerald Hoffman has been our family attorney for 20 years. He's not scamming anyone. Then you're not thinking clearly. Maybe Victoria was right about the assisted living. If you're making rash decisions like this, I stood up. Get out. He blinked. What? Get out of my house. Right now. Mom, you're trying to gaslight me into thinking I'm incompetent because I'm making a choice you don't like. That's exactly why I'm doing this. Out. Now. James left, angry and defensive. Robert texted instead of visiting, asking if we could talk. I ignored it. On January 2nd, I met with Gerald in his office downtown. We spent 2 hours going through everything. The house, the investment accounts, the life insurance policies, Thomas's pension benefits. I want it split, I told him. 50% to medical research focused on heart disease. Thomas died of a heart attack. I want that money to help prevent others from going through what we did. 25% to scholarship funds for first-generation college students. Education matters. 25% to a local women's shelter. They do important work. Gerald drafted everything carefully. He included a clause explaining my reasoning, not out of spite, but clarity. I leave my estate to these organizations because they represent values I hold dear: compassion, education, and support for those in need. My children are capable adults with their own resources. I trust they will understand that legacy is built on principle, not expectation. I signed the documents on January 5th, with 2 witnesses present. It was done. Final. Legally binding. I called each of my children that evening and told them it was official. The reactions varied. Victoria cried, begging for another chance. James threatened legal action, claiming undue influence. Robert went silent, hanging up without a word. The weeks that followed were hard. My phone stayed quiet. No Sunday calls from Victoria checking in. No random texts from Robert. No emails from James about family plans. The silence confirmed what I'd suspected. They'd only maintained contact because of what they expected to inherit. It hurt. Even knowing it was true, even being the one who forced the confrontation, it hurt to have that rejection confirmed so absolutely. But something else happened too. I started living differently. I joined a book club at the library. Made friends with women my age who actually listened when I spoke, who invited me to lunches and asked about my day. I volunteered at the community center, teaching cooking classes to seniors who wanted to learn. I traveled, a river cruise through Europe Thomas and I had always planned but never took. I used my time and money for myself, and it felt revolutionary. 6 months passed. Then, on a Tuesday in July, Victoria showed up again. This time, she brought Emma with her. "Mom," Victoria said at my doorstep. "Can we talk?" "Really talk?" I let them in. We sat in the backyard, the garden Thomas planted now in full summer bloom. "I've spent the last 6 months thinking," Victoria began. "About how we treated you. About what kind of daughter I became after Dad died. You were right about all of it." Emma spoke up, surprising me. "Grandma, I didn't realize how mean we were until you left Christmas dinner. I watched Mom cry for days after. She showed me old photos of you and Grandpa, told me stories I'd never heard. I'm sorry I ignored you. You deserve better." Victoria continued. "I'm not here to ask you to change the will back. I'm here to apologize and try to build an actual relationship with you, if you'll let me. No conditions, no expectations. Just because I miss my mom and I've been a terrible daughter." I looked at her carefully, searching for manipulation, for the angle. I saw only genuine remorse. "This won't be fixed overnight," I said slowly. "If you want back in my life, it takes work. Actual time, actual effort. Phone calls that aren't about favors. Visits that aren't obligatory." "I know," Victoria said. "I'm willing to do the work." Over the following months, she proved it. Weekly phone calls where she asked about my book club and cooking classes. Invitations to lunch, just the two of us. She brought Emma regularly, and my granddaughter started actually talking to me, sharing her life, her college plans, her dreams. James eventually came around too, though it took longer. He apologized stiffly at first, clearly uncomfortable. But he started showing up, bringing Patricia and the kids. We rebuilt slowly, carefully. Robert took the longest. Almost a year passed before he reached out. When he finally did, his message was simple: "I'm sorry, Mom. Can we try again?" We met for coffee. He'd broken up with Amber, moved back to Connecticut, and gotten a better job. He seemed more grounded, more present. We talked for 3 hours, really talked. He told me he'd been coasting, using people, including me. The inheritance cutoff had forced him to grow up. "I'm not glad you did it," he admitted. "But I needed it. The will stayed changed." I told them that clearly. "If you're in my life now because you actually want to be, then my money going to charity shouldn't matter. If it does matter, then we haven't actually fixed anything." They accepted it. Or at least said they did. Time would tell. 2 years after that Christmas dinner, we gathered again for the holidays. This time at my house. I cooked everything, including pumpkin pies. We sat around my dining room table, the one they'd wanted to sell along with everything else. Conversation flowed naturally. They asked about my volunteer work. I asked about their lives. Emma talked about her college major. Connor showed me a video game he designed. Robert discussed his promotion. Victoria shared photos from a family vacation. When dessert came, I brought out the pies. "Mom's famous pumpkin pie," James said, taking a large slice. "I haven't had this in forever." "You had the opportunity 2 years ago," I reminded him gently. He nodded, shame flickering across his face. "I know. I'm sorry I missed it then." "Don't miss it again," I said simply. After dinner, we played board games like Victoria's family had done that Christmas I'd walked out. But this time, I was included. They asked my opinion. laughed at my jokes, made space for me at the table, literally and figuratively. As I cleaned up later, Victoria helped dry dishes. "Are you happy, Mom?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I answered honestly. "Are you?" She smiled. "Getting there. You taught me something important when you changed that will." "What's that?" "That love isn't obligation. It's choice. You chose to demand better treatment, and it forced us to choose whether we actually wanted you in our lives or just your money. I'm glad we chose you." I hugged her, really hugged her, for the first time in years. The path hadn't been easy. Cutting my children out of my will, even temporarily, had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done. But it had also been necessary. Because they needed to understand that I was a person, not an ATM. A mother, not a means to an end. Someone who deserved respect and consideration, not dismissal and manipulation. Before you go, I need you to do 3 things for me. First, like this video if it resonated with you in any way. Second, share it with someone who might be going through something similar, someone who needs to know it's okay to stand up for themselves even with family. Third, comment below and tell me, have you ever had to set a boundary with family that felt impossible? What happened? Did it get better or worse? Your stories matter, and I read every single one. Remember, family ties are important, but they don't give anyone the right to treat you as less than you are. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is to demand the respect you deserve. My name is Margaret Chen, I'm 74 now, and I'm no longer invisible. And neither should you be.